You can't buy me. You won't have me tonight. Those were the words Agnetha and Frida sang in So Long, firmly rejecting a persistent admirer and leaving him disappointed. But soon, the disappointment from the song spilled over into real life. ABBA's success attracted people who tried to buy their attention, their affection, and even more. In a way, So Long sounded like Agnetha and Frida's answer to those advances. But disappointment was not just the song's message. The real story turned out to be far more complicated and far more dramatic.
After Waterloo won the Eurovision Song Contest, Bjorn said, "The success of Ring Ring and Waterloo means we no longer have to be as serious as we used to be." Benny added, "And there's no longer any need to rush."
In the autumn of 1974, after recording So Long, ABBA set off on a European tour. After their Eurovision triumph, it seemed the group was at the very peak of its success. But it soon became clear that this impression was misleading.
During the tour, newspapers wrote extensively about Agnetha. It was then that one publication described her as having the sexiest bottom in pop music. Years later, Bjorn looked back on the band's stage outfits with a smile. Back then, I thought the more outrageous we looked, the better. Some of the outfits I wore in 1974 and 1975 were simply crazy. I don't think anyone has ever gone on stage dressed worse than we did.
Behind the scenes, however, the mood was becoming increasingly tense. The very first concert of the tour in Copenhagen made it clear that there would be no overwhelming demand. A second show had been planned in case the first one sold out. Instead, it had to be cancelled because even the opening night failed to fill the venue.
What came next was even worse. In Hanover, Munich, Vienna, and other cities, audiences were much smaller than expected. 2 concerts were cancelled because of poor ticket sales, and at Vienna's Stadthalle, a venue with a capacity of 5,600, only about 1,200 seats were occupied.
Years later, Bjorn admitted, "We were close to despair." After one of the concerts, a German journalist delivered an especially harsh verdict. ABBA managed to keep the audience until the very end only because everyone was waiting for Waterloo, which they performed as an encore.
After the tour, ABBA's manager, Stig Anderson, reflected, "Of course I wanted ABBA to appear before live audiences, but because of that tour, we lost a great deal of time and seriously disrupted our songwriting and recording schedule, and that was far more important."
Meanwhile, Bjorn and Benny's own outlook had begun to change. As Bjorn put it, "It's perfectly obvious that we can't keep riding on the success of Waterloo forever. We intend to become a strong album act. Our previous album received excellent reviews in the United States, and I believe we'll achieve that in time."
Expectations for So Long were high. ABBA themselves believed the song had almost the same potential as Waterloo.
It was recorded at Glen Studio. Unlike Metronome Studio, where they had to fight for every available recording session, Glen Studio gave the group the freedom to work for as long as they needed. That allowed Bjorn, Benny, and sound engineer Michael Tretto much more room to experiment.
Tretto was the only engineer they wanted behind the mixing desk. By then, his ability to create unique sounds had already become an essential part of ABBA's signature style. Years later, however, Benny admitted that Glen Studio had one serious drawback. Located in a basement, it simply didn't have very good acoustics.
The recordings we made there never turned out very well. According to Benny, So Long is where this can be heard most clearly. The sound came out too harsh, with a steely edge, Benny recalled. But the biggest problems facing this song had nothing to do with the quality of the recording.
You think you're gonna make me sulk, you and your fancy car.
That's how So Long begins. What follows is a simple, familiar story. A wealthy admirer tries to win a girl over with expensive gifts and money. But she makes it clear from the very beginning
that it's hopeless. They say that money's got a magic touch, but not to me. You won't have me tonight. And the song's message couldn't be clearer. You can't buy me with your money.
On November 18th, 1974, So Long was released as a single. The chart results were a major disappointment. At its peak, the song reached number 3 in Austria, number 8 in Denmark, number 7 in Sweden, and only number 11 in Germany. For most artists, those would have been respectable chart positions, but not for ABBA.
Years later, Stig Andersen explained one of the reasons behind the song's disappointing performance. Even great songs sometimes need proper promotion. We should have separated the single's release from the tour. They tried to recover. After ABBA performed So Long on television, interest in the song did increase. But by then, it was already too late. It took the single almost 2 months to break into Sweden's top 20, in a country where ABBA's previous releases had climbed the charts almost immediately. A song about a girl disappointing her persistent admirer ended up becoming a major disappointment itself.
But does that really mean So Long was a bad song? First of all, it's incredibly energetic. From the very first seconds, the driving rhythm grabs the listener's attention, while the powerful guitar sets the tone for the entire song. The vocals deserve special attention as well. Agnetha and Frida don't just sing beautifully. Their voices convey confidence, defiance, and even a hint of mockery toward the overconfident admirer. That's what makes the story behind the lyrics so convincing.
Another striking feature is that the song hardly ever slows down. It seems to charge forward from the opening seconds and never loses its momentum until the very end. At the same time, So Long isn't a particularly complex composition. Its structure is fairly simple, but that simplicity perfectly matches its energy and attitude. So why, despite all that energy, didn't the song come anywhere close to repeating the success of Waterloo?
The answer may lie in Stig Andersen's words. Quality alone doesn't guarantee commercial success. At the very moment when the single needed promotion, ABBA left for a European tour. In the end, both the tour and the single fell short of expectations, at least compared with what the group had hoped to achieve.
After a setback, many people simply give up. But ABBA didn't. The members of the group never saw this period of their career as a failure. Instead, they chose to look at it from a different perspective.
Stig argued that the tour's real purpose wasn't commercial, it was promotional. Bjorn saw So Long in much the same way. He later said that although the song wasn't a commercial success, it revealed a different side of ABBA, more versatile, more rock-oriented, and more confident.
But there's one strange detail. Over the past 50 years, a widely accepted view of So Long has taken hold. One that simply isn't true. And if that view is wrong, then the entire story of this song has to be seen in a completely different light. Not the way most people see it today.
We'll talk about that in the next video. And we'll also listen to So Long in full.